Honestly, it's always better if I could just be a robot. I'm telling you, I would make so much more money. My life would be so much less dramatic if I could just
Well,
be like social
thankfully, you
media
get one.
tip. Yes. But I just can't do it. I can't do it. Okay, Ryan, I have been wanting to talk to you about this topic. I saw it on Threads and it's kind of all over the place. We'll put some of the specifics on the screen.
Mhm.
But essentially, the family vloggers are
Love
coming
them. Or do
to
we?
they're coming to, I don't want to say an end, but there's
Yeah.
a kind of a reckoning happening with family vloggers having children in YouTube content. And specifically in California, a new law was introduced that kind of, again, I'll put the specifics up on the screen, but basically they have to, if children are in a certain percentage of a video or a piece of content, the parent has to save a certain amount of money for the child
Mhm.
and allocate it for them. It's basically like child labor laws for, YouTube or Instagram or whatever.
Which is
uh,
crazy that we need it. You know what I'm saying? And like,
yeah.
like clearly there's a reason why this came about and a parent was
Hmm.
not paying their kid for whatever it was.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
who
I
knows?
mean, there's been lots of horror stories. I mean, there's actually a documentary about, I think it's like her name's like Ruby Frankie or something. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I know the one you're
I,
talking about.
I haven't watched it yet, but that was like a horrible, child abuse case. There were other YouTubers that have kind of got caught in scandals of like
Yeah,
having to like make their kids act basically like they got caught on camera being like,
right.
look sadder or look happier
Do
or
something.
yeah, yeah.
There was the girl from Modern Family was a huge one too, and she was on
Oh,
Ellen even talking about it
yeah.
years ago because her mom was
Interesting.
like taking all of her money because she wasn't 18. And
Hmm.
so she had to literally um what's the word for it when the kid has to remove themselves from their parent?
Yeah, I know what you're. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know why I
it's
can't
whatever
think. Emancipated,
legally emancipation.
emancipation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's interesting.
So yeah, so it just kind of got me thinking because I I think we're probably on a similar page there where we're like, yeah, probably good, probably for the best, right?
Yeah,
Um, but
definitely.
obviously you and I don't have children, so we can't really. Yeah, I think there's a degree of it that I guess I won't ever understand, and I never want to sound like I'm like shaming family vloggers because
Mm-mm.
as a creator, I know I never wanted to be a real relationship creator, for example, but like I document my life. And so my partners have been in my content. And
Right.
so I could only imagine if I had children that, of course, I would want to like, whatever, they're a part of my life. Like it's kind of feels like you're hiding a piece of yourself or something,
Yeah.
maybe if they're not there. So I understand that it's like a nuanced topic, obviously, but I thought maybe you and I could talk about our our lives, how
Right.
family or relationships or how all of that kind of
Yeah, because it's
factors into
interesting.
what we do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. I think that for me personally, yeah, okay, I'm just gonna give tea right away too, because I feel like it ends up coming out in early on in the episode, where it's kind of funny because my husband is featured in a lot of things, and
Yeah.
he's always like sometimes joking of like, there's a joke in the queer community we hear a lot where it's like, I own 51% of this company, and it's kind of
Uh-huh.
the idea of a powerful woman, or maybe let's say like the wife of somebody who owns a company and just saying like, I own 51% of this company. Like I own majority stake. So I
Yeah.
have all the power kind of deal. And it's interesting in the family dynamic of things because you want to share that with
Yeah.
your partner, especially like if you've been with him for a while and you're married and legally, like everything wants to be shared. So when it comes to creating content, sometimes I kind of assume he's part of it. And I'll sometimes like rope him in and be like, hey, I need you to shoot this for me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I need you to capture this. And he is pretty on board with everything too, which is kind of nice
Yeah.
because uh he gets it. You know what I mean? Especially
Yep.
with like brand deals and things like that and all that stuff. But
Hmm.
I can easily see why somebody might not get it. Or you kind of would struggle of like, let's say you've been dating someone for like 2 years and you're not married and there's no
Hmm.
legal ties to anything. Because I've seen, in addition to kids, which I can't imagine doing, like, I don't know, do you know what Ninja Kids?
Mm-mm.
For anyone who doesn't know, there's the Ninja Kids have their own channel on
Uh-huh.
Comcast My
Okay.
niece has grown up loving them. It's these 5 kids, they're all in part of the same family, and they are kind of like they do, like, crazy they've been on YouTube forever, but they're probably just making millions of dollars,
Yeah.
and I was always just curious because that's a really weird dynamic where the parent like, the dad and mom are very rarely featured. Of course, they're doing the
Mm,
shooting and the editing,
interesting.
I think, but the kids are definitely the stars.
Yeah.
And to the level of like when you and I were watching Power Rangers, that's them.
Yeah.
Like they are
Wow.
just the actors. Um, and I just thought it was always interesting because those dynamics, you have to put laws
Yeah.
because the dynamics are so interesting that naturally, I think you were talking about like not wanting to put shame on families, which we definitely
Mhm.
don't, because I think that the people we relate to probably know, like, hey, if I'm featuring my kid on YouTube, I should probably be putting away a certain amount for them if
Mhm.
they're starring in it. Um, but I would say it's an interesting world that is kind of
Yeah.
hard to navigate already. So I can picture even sometimes people doing it without realizing, hey, or
Yeah.
you see, oh, the one thing I was gonna talk about when I was talking about my man is like the relationship people you always see talking about like, hey, we're splitting our Instagram account.
Yeah. Oh my
Or
gosh.
that's a whole nother realm of the relationship too, of
Yeah.
okay, if we built this account together, I noticed
Yeah.
like people who build things together, they start to really focus on building their own individuals
Mm,
too. So I
mhm,
think
mhm.
eventually they know this got too powerful. We
Yeah.
need to disinvest it or what have you.
Yeah.
We need to break it up.
Yeah. Well, I've been through 2 breakups on the internet,
Hmm.
and it's very weird. And this is as somebody who is not I've never been a relationship creator. I've never had a joint channel with my boyfriend or my husband. But yeah, like my first breakup, I was in college and we lived together. And he was actually such a huge part of my business story because he was a freelancer. And so he
Hmm.
was kind of like the first person when I got a random inquiry to do a consultation call on Skype back then. He was like,
Right.
"Yeah, you should take it. Like, here's how to do it. Here's how to price for
Yeah.
it." So, like, yeah, he very much encouraged me to start freelancing and he was happy to like be in vlogs and things like that. And so it was really awkward when we broke up because it was like, do I just like phase him out? Do I make like a
Hey, can
video
you come feature in
explaining?
this really just like one video in like a month just so that it like feels
Yeah.
organic?
Yeah, it was really awkward, because to your point, it's not like we were, married and had 10 kids together where it's like, okay, you have to say something.
Right.
So it was very awkward. And then, as a lot of people know, I just got divorced. And that same thing, I was like, I really had to process it myself. And like, I had to tell my friends and family before I was going to tell the internet. So there was this
True.
level of like, okay, well, I guess he's just going to kind of disappear from my content for a while. And, it is very strange. But at the same time, I just, because I've been thinking about this now as I've been like dating, and I have been dating somebody who does not live in this world at all.
Mm.
Just because my husband, at least, he understood it because he was in like radio and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, at the same time, it's just not authentic to me to like be that I wish I could be. I wish I could be that creator who just like popped up, "Oh, I'm married and have 5 kids." You see that where you're like, "I didn't even know you had a boyfriend. I didn't even know." You know, I wish I could be that private, but it's
Yeah.
not in me. It
Yeah.
just isn't. Like, how am I
No, you
supposed to
wanna
be
share your
vlogging?
story. You wanna share you. I get that.
Yeah, yeah, it's like, how am I supposed to vlog a week in my business? And I'm like, "Oh, I just spent whatever, a week with my boyfriend or whatever," and not say that. Like, I just
Right.
can't. So I think I still am trying to find that balance of, you know, what do you share? How much do you
Mhm.
share? But it is weird.
It's weird. I think though, you just made me think of that I feel people can always tie back to, which almost to me makes like this law shouldn't have
Mhm,
even been needed,
mhm.
is that when you feature somebody in videos, you have to get their permission
Yes.
or pay them, in a lot of
Yeah.
cases, if they're acting in it and if they're like a featured character, which ties in with that percentage note you mentioned about, because like if the kids are just in it,
Yeah.
randomly and they're not doing it, this law focuses specifically on like you made your kid. Let's say Ryan's toy review. I know it's another one because my niece and nephew loved him growing up.
Uh-huh.
That he's clearly the star and he's the
Yeah.
reason why it's working. Um, that's when it should just be assumed,
Yeah.
but versus us, talking
Mhm.
about like someone in our life or featuring them really quick or something like
Yeah.
that. To me, it's like, okay, whatever,
Yep.
in that sense as much.
For
But
sure.
but yeah, when like I think that almost ties in too with us wanting to be so personal with what we do and being a content creator, it is harder to not make it even more personal than
Mhm.
entrepreneurship or,
Mhm.
just having service-based business or what have you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I just don't think that's in me to just be like a robot, you know? And
Mhm.
I think it would be honestly, it's always better if I could just be a robot. I'm telling you, I would make so much more money. My life would be so much less dramatic if I could just
Well,
be like social
thankfully, I
media
am one.
tip. Yes. But I just can't do it. I can't do it. But also, so okay, I, it's interesting because you probably I don't think you have this experience because you've pretty much been with your husband the whole time you've
Since the
been,
beginning. Yeah.
yeah, like, had like a big presence, really. I
Yeah.
mean, but I guess like you were doing YouTube and stuff like that when you were dating, when you were single,
Yes.
right?
When
Like
we were
kind of
yeah,
playing
initially
around.
dating, it was just YouTube. He wasn't
Mhm.
featured in a gosh
Yeah.
darn thing. Like, it was even though what's funny is, like, those were much longer videos, yet he was
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
yeah, but he's essentially I started YouTube kinda, like, pretty much around the time I met him, which is
Yeah.
interesting too.
And was that weird? Like when you're in the dating phase, because this is
Oh,
very new to
yes.
me. Like dating in general is very new to me. And like I meet a guy and they're like, so what do you do? And I'm like, so I own this marketing company. That's what I always say. And like they're like, so like well, tell me more. Like I'm like,
Yes.
I'm a YouTuber, okay? I'm a
Right.
YouTuber. Like was that a conversation that like
Yeah,
was he
I'll
weirded
okay.
out by that?
2 things. I'll share one really funny one and one that is actually also, I think, funny. So, when I was dating I dated somebody right before Paul,
Hmm.
and in my apartment at the time, I had my light set up, I had, like, a camera, tripod, and somebody walked in and just saw that in my room. And I was like, "Oh, that's my bedroom." And like we just kept walking to the living room. And they were like, "What do you?" Because again, this is like not content creation was not a job
Yeah.
like 7, it would be like 7, 8 years ago.
Yep.
And I was like, "Oh no, it's not that." Like for anyone who can fill in the dots there of like what
Yeah.
they thought I do. Cause I was like, "Oh yeah, I make content sometimes."
Like, what kind of
Even now I have to like
content?
clarify sometimes. I'm like, I'm a content creator. I make funny videos.
Yes.
I make skits. I make entertainment.
Yeah.
Um, not entertainment.
Yeah, not
Right.
adult entertainment.
So that was a really funny thing. And then what's funny too about you saying introducing people, I haven't had to do that as much because what's really funny is new people that I meet these days, I'll usually meet through a friend of mine. And I
Yeah.
kid you not, I would say like 80% of the time, my good friend who's introducing me is always like, "Yeah, I don't know if you knew he's famous online."
Oh my
Like they
god.
just like and that almost creates a little bit of an awkwardness for me because
Yeah.
I'm not that showboaty of a way. And I always make sure to like stay humble and uh so it's an interesting way to like approach somebody of like, "Hi, my friend just said that I'm like
Yeah.
internet famous. How are you?"
Yeah.
Like it's harder to start like those not harder, but just like it's very interesting starting that. But for
Yeah.
Paul, to answer your question, it wasn't weird in any kind of way, although because I'm already like a nerdy vibe. Like
Yeah.
I'm a choir boy who's a little
Yeah.
bit nerdy and like likes Pokemon and like things
Yeah.
like that in the deep down. And so like that wasn't a surprise, but I would say like that year where I was like starting TikTok and I was gaining all
Mhm.
these followers and making 3 videos a week, and he was actually working from home slash in his education.
Yeah.
It was like there was a little bit of "You're weird,"
Yeah.
kind of energy in a very, like, loving way, but just very, like, not weird, but just I don't know. It's hard to describe, but he did like, again,
Yeah.
I would go to you and say, "Hey, I'm making videos." You're like, "Work, yes, I
Yeah.
get it." And he's kinda like, who am I married to?" You know, kind of
Yeah.
energy. Like, what is this that's happening? And then sure
Yeah.
enough, years later, kind of seeing my vision, he's like, "Oh, gotcha.
Mhm.
I get you."
Yeah. Yeah, it is it's interesting. I feel I do best when I meet people on the internet, actually.
Mhm,
I think that for a lot of reasons. I think because 'cause I'm, like, very shy and introverted and probably a little more closed off than I really am, like, in
mhm.
person when first meeting people. But yeah, like, so my college boyfriend, I wasn't making YouTube. Like he was there the day I started my YouTube channel, which was kind of fun.
Yeah,
I was like blogging and stuff, but it wasn't as intense as like I'm filming my life.
right.
Welcome. And then my husband, we basically met on Instagram. He DM'd me and we had a friend of a friend, but it's like it was all my cards were all up there. It was
Yeah.
linked to my Instagram. So he
They can
had
see a lot about you.
Yes. But yeah, I'm like when I've been on dates with guys who are like engineers and like
Yeah,
just like they're just like what? Like they just like
right.
don't understand it and I think it does turn some people off, which is completely
I was gonna say,
understandable.
I think you have a very different even experience with that because I know in the straight community, the dynamic of like male female power dynamics is still
Mm,
very prevalent. At least that's what I
yeah.
hear from my friends. So I imagine you would have
Yeah.
a different one.
Yeah, I think definitely there's an element of that, but I think there's also just like I think like I don't know, straight engineer dudes like are probably
I know the
less
type. I went to Michigan State, a very heavily engineering college. Okay.
Yeah. They're
Um,
probably, like, a little less interested in even being making a cameo in something than, like, a choir gay, you know?
right.
Like, they're probably like, "Oh, yeah, hell yeah, I like this guy. I like him." Like, they're just not into it and get freaked
Yes,
out
I
by the
get
idea
that.
of, like, "Does this mean I have to be a YouTuber too?"
Yes.
So, yeah, that's
Yeah, because I would
something.
say, yeah, and, like, not to, like, think too much into it, but I feel like a lot of people who are queer are into the arts. So it's
Yeah,
like, when you
for
think of
sure.
that, I think it's an easier transition than I feel like I know a lot of straight men that are not into the arts whatsoever. So for you to
Yeah.
be like, "I'm essentially a working artist," you know what I mean? In
Yes.
a sense, they'd be like, "Okay,"
Yeah.
kinda
But
deal.
and I think that raises another question because I've been thinking about this myself. I'm like, is that important to me? Is it important to me that he is in my content or not? Like, and I'm
Yeah,
curious, like if Paul was like hard boundary, no, I cannot
right.
do this or I don't want to do this.
He
Do you think
hates
that
being
would
photographed.
yeah,
Unless it's like, I'm like, "Hey, this is a really cool spot." We were, like, in, like, Amsterdam, and there was a cool pic available, and
yeah,
he's like, "Oh, I loved that." Like, that was awesome. Like, he likes it,
yeah,
and what's funny is that even on one of our first dates, we actually do it and, like, he's into photography, so he
yeah,
himself does have that similar interest,
yeah,
but this is a big but, which is my favorite part. He
yeah,
has no desire whatsoever to be remotely doing the same thing that I'm doing.
yes,
So we both have our own lane, we both have our own separateness in that way, which I think is a very important thing for relationships.
yeah. I don't think I would date another I don't
Well,
want to never say
creators can be
never.
different too. Like doing the
Yeah,
same thing you and I do, I
yeah.
don't think that would work really well. But somebody who maybe is like you kind of see like the actress who dates the director. To me, that
Mhm.
makes sense. Like
Yeah.
completely different roles,
Yeah.
and they would never work maybe together or anything like that. But
I don't think I would do that either. I mean,
I'm thinking it out. I was like, I don't know about that
yeah.
actually.
Never say never, but I just I think there is like I appreciate that I have my own thing and it makes it more like work in a sense that it's like, okay, like we go to our different jobs and then we come together at the
Yeah,
end of the day to have our life, not like
yeah,
our life is so intertwined with my business. Like it puts a lot of
right.
pressure on the
Yeah, you don't want that
business.
pressure.
Yeah, and it does sometimes feel like I'm like performing, I guess, in a way in
Yeah.
my own personal life too.
Well,
But
you give a lot on camera, so it's like
yeah,
you don't want to have to do that personally.
Yeah.
in your downtime.
Yeah. But I do think it is very important that whoever I'm with is like respects what I do too, because
That's very important.
I do talk to, and I think to your point, this might have a little more to do with like the traditional gender dynamics somewhat, although I'm sure everybody, experiences it. But like I talk to a lot of women in particular who, maybe they're just starting their content creation journey and they're like, my husband's just like, I don't get it. Like, why are you wasting your time doing this? Like,
Mhm.
um, and that is not okay. Like,
Yeah.
even if you're knitting and it's not
Right.
making any money, if that's what you like to do, like I need my partner to respect my interests and take it seriously. Like it's not just like some little thing that,
Right.
like it is important that you're with somebody that respects it and that understands it, I think,
Yeah.
or at least for me it is. But they don't necessarily need to be a part of it.
No,
Or
even I think just showing that little bit of interest
Mhm.
goes a long way. Like the fact that like Paul was into photography, completely
Mhm.
really unrelated, but I like photography too. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it has that arts aspect
Yeah.
for things too and understands. I feel like in tying it back to like the conversation with the child labor laws having to come out too, I think that in general, because we're talking about, two adults, things that
Yeah.
involve two adults. I think in general, that's what I was actually wanting to get into. People with pets, even too,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and people with their kids. It's like, are we having a certain generation where people are being authentic in their decisions, or do they like want to just get a pet in hopes that it like is a cute pet
Yep.
that is like on so because the people who get like immediately give their like new pet an account. And in my head though, I think I might do that if I got any kind of animal because like
Yeah.
it's a new content venue.
Mhm.
Uh but I wonder if people do feel that way a little bit with kids of like if my kids show some stardom, boom. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be, I think, a reputable career in the future.
Yeah.
So that'll be tricky too. Cause like let's
Mhm.
say like someone in my family, like a niece or nephew wants to wha- I do have family actually that is already on YouTube making
Mhm.
content. And it's amazing. Like I love
Yeah.
seeing it. So how much do I push? Like how much do I
Yeah.
like offer? And obviously I haven't done anything besides maybe help, with production on the back end a little bit,
Yeah.
um, for a second. And this was only one time, like for just fun.
Yeah.
I, but I think that it's going to be an interesting world because there are going to be kids who want to become content creators, and there's going to be parents who know. I think for like the ninja kids, their dad is like a professional video editor, and that's what
Yeah.
kind of like started. My dad had a camcorder with us growing up.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he made
But
videos and kind of inspired me a little bit, to be honest.
yeah, I hear you, but I think the difference too, you're right. Like the difference between us talking about like partners and whatever is like kids don't have the full scope of,
No.
going back to our like safety and privacy episode. If you haven't listened to that, check that one out. Like
Mhm.
those are things that even me, when I started my YouTube when I was in my 20s, I didn't think about. And now I think about differently as a 33-year-old
Right.
woman. I'm like, ooh, probably shouldn't have shared that. Probably shouldn't have let people in. And you know, I think overall, I choose to believe that people are more good than bad. And like, I don't try to live in fear and think like everyone's out to get you. But there are really weird people out there,
Yeah.
specifically with kids who are defenseless and, whatever. And it's like, I do think it would be nice to have the choice. I don't know how I would feel if I found, was an adult and found out my mom was putting all those home movies out in a public
Right,
platform
on YouTube.
and having like potential creeps, like,
Right.
and you hear about that. You hear about like kids having people call them by their names at the grocery store and they're like, stranger danger,
Wild.
like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think choice is important in that. And for me personally,
Yeah.
we both have nieces, nephews, and like I personally don't put my niece and nephews on the internet anymore. Like once I started to develop a following of more strangers, if you
Yeah.
will, than close friends, I stopped putting them up publicly. I only recently started, like I put my nephew in my vlog of me moving into the studio because he's
Mhm.
19. And I asked him, is this okay? But
Right.
like the ones who are not 18, I don't really put out there anymore.
No, like, some people, like, even post, like, family pics. My one friend, actually called me out for it, which was very interesting because I was trying to make this a thing, but I didn't think
Yeah.
anybody would catch it. He goes, "Ryan is he has so much social media content. He shares nothing about his personal
Mm,
life." And I
yeah.
was like, kind of true. Like I don't really I even similar to you, I kind of just started only a year ago even putting Paul in more things
Mhm.
because before that, I mean like most of my videos are characters I play with me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
So I never had to like share that personal aspect. But yeah, I don't think I with the age that all of my like niece and nephews are at, I would never put them on things because yeah, like under 18, it just 18 is really the point in society that we've
Mhm.
delved like you're okay to make maybe a decision about your life because of
Yeah.
just the setup of things, I think.
Yep.
So asking people before then, hey, are you okay with this?
Mhm.
You need the laws because you
Yeah.
need the laws for the adults regardless, I think
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, 'cause of
um,
course a kid is gonna be like, "Oh, of course, I wanna show
sure,
off
that's
my
what's
dance," 'cause
fun.
that's what kids do. Like, I loved to
Right,
perform when I was a kid, but, I didn't understand the complexities
right.
involved with
And
it.
now how amazing with this kind of law that just to
Mhm.
like even like wrap it up and tie it in that now you'll have these kids that can come out like let's say they did want to choose it, they have this huge platform to do what they want.
Yeah.
But let's say they don't, they still got paid essentially for working, let's
Yeah.
say from age 10 to 18,
Yep.
and maybe could even, in some of the cases, extreme ones can live off of that the rest of their life,
Yeah.
or what have you.
Absolutely.
So I am happy
I
that they're noticing things like this in
Yeah.
the world and taking action.
Yeah, me too. And I'm really curious what you all think, especially if you have kids. So, because, yeah, we don't obviously have that lens of it.
Perspective,
So
yeah.
let us know what you think in the comments for sure. About, the kid thing, about would you ever vlog your relationship, your dog? I'm really curious to hear what you think about this one.
Yeah, and leave us a review on the podcast if you liked it. It helps us get out to more content creators and subscribe on YouTube if you're watching. And we will see you all in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.